Okay, it's time to start getting down into the nitty-gritty of opening up a closed guard with a minimum of fuss and a minimum of time, and get down to work. Again, you can't do any of the guard passing maneuvers that we look at in this video until you can open up someone's closed guard. As long as their ankles are crossed behind you, there's no guard passing. So that's always the first skill that you must master. Now, with regards to opening a closed guard, a principle which I always coach my students is negate first, open second. What does this mean? If Placido is working from closed guard, there's a considerable amount of danger when I'm inside someone's closed guard. If they ever brush one of my arms across the center line, they've exposed my back. That's a serious problem. If they ever trap one of my arms in their hip and start getting into top locks, etc., it's a serious problem. If they ever create situations where one of my hands gets caught inside their legs and one get caught outside, this too is a serious problem. Okay, so it's a risky position for me to hang out in. Even if my opponent's not offensively minded, it's still wasting time. If you're in a 10-minute match and you spend 6 minutes locked up in your opponent's closed guard, and then finally 6 minutes in you open up his closed guard, you got 4 minutes to beat him. You just made your task 60% more difficult by wasting 60% of the time in the match. Time is a valuable commodity in any match, and if you waste large amounts of time locked up inside someone's closed guard, you're just making the task more difficult for yourself. So you got to prioritize time here. Okay, so we're going to be looking at first negating what my opponent can do to me. I want to lessen the number of attacks that he can perform upon me, and as a result, quickly open up our opponent's guard and save time. Now, understand that almost all of your opponent's attacks are based around the idea of taking an arm across the center line, or getting some kind of angle on your body, or taking the lock of his guard higher and higher up your back to threaten arm bars or triangles. Okay, almost all of the attacks involve those. The only addition to that, where some people will enjoy the idea of sitting up to a side and coming up so that their hips go higher than your hips, and then from here they can be dangerous. So those are the major forms of danger associated with closed guard. So let's have a look at that again. The first is the idea of brushing an arm across the center line. That creates immediate danger. The idea of angle. The idea of high locks, top locks, triangles, etc. And the idea of sitting up to a side and getting their hips higher than your hips. Those are the main lines of danger whenever you're inside someone's closed guard. The way this is done is typically through the use of grips. Your opponent can control your head with collar ties. He can take overhooks, underhooks, even guillotine grips, front headlock variations, etc., and control your upper body with those grips. So you can see there's 4 ways in which he can maneuver his body to threaten you, and there are various forms of grip that he can use, even down to things like wrist controls, like so. Okay? So if those are the main dangers, we got to negate them. You got to make it safe first, and then attack your opponent and open up his closed guard. Okay, so safety first, then open up his closed guard. Don't try to open up someone's closed guard. You're in situations where you don't really control him, and all kinds of madness can begin. Okay, so step number 1 is negation. If I see an opponent gripping me, let's deal with grip first. He goes to grip me at the collar. Okay, I want to be able to get out of here with a minimum of fuss. So as he locks on tight, if I just move my head back against his collar tie, it's going to be very difficult. So I take my hand and I go over his forearm and I lock his forearm down. Now from here, I move my head not up, that's going into his finger strength. Rather, I move away in the direction that his knuckles are pointing. And that's how we get out. Okay? So once again, I close over the top and I move away from the hand, just like so. If he goes to control a wrist, I always want to turn and bring my hands to his wrist. He grabs a wrist, I always want to turn and bring my thumb over his wrists. Okay? Now, we're not working with a gi on here, so you're not going to be able to hold this for very long. He's probably going to violently pull his hands away from you, and you'll lose grips. Then he goes into regrip, and you constantly work. Every time he goes to grip, you're regripping. As he goes to pull out, go through and come out. Okay, here's an important rule for you. When someone grabs you by the head, the more extended their arm, the more we use posts. Hold tight. The more we use posts to take it off. The more bent their arm, the more we use forearm controls and come out. So if I'm up here and he grabs my head, we'll just post and clear out. If we're down here and he holds us, we'll grip and move out. He grabs the wrist and we circle through. He grabs the wrist, we circle through. Okay? Now, if someone comes up and goes for a front headlock type grip, I can never have situations where I expose the neck. So when he comes up, I always take my head and just point it at his center line. He comes up the other side, and I just point my head at his center line. Every time he comes up, head points at the center line. If my head stays where it is, he comes up, he gets a hold of me. Okay? So when someone rises up, you just point our head at the center line. And in this way, you protect yourself from that form of grip. If someone comes over the top with an overhook, I put my leg up on the same side. Now from here, I take my hand and I point my thumb up towards the ceiling, and my hand comes through to their stomach. And in one motion, my knee comes down and we just limp the arm free. So as they come around with a tight overhook, look, I put my foot up on the same side, thumb points up, comes around the corner. As the knee comes down, the arm shoots free. Every time he gets a deep underhook on me, from here, I bring my head over his head. I get inside control on the opposite side. And then from these situations, we're always looking to get our hand to pommel through over the top and then come back short like so. Okay? So once again, he comes in with an underhook. I bring my head over his head. I point my palm up and I just slip the hand inside. Once the hand comes inside, we forearm post and we're back. Okay? Now, a very important point. When you're working without a gi, you can't hold the grips for very long. If I hold someone here, just violently yank away, there's no way. My fingers just aren't hard enough, strong enough to hold someone. And I'm bigger than Placido, and still I can't hold them reliably. So what you've got to get used to is this. Every time you break a grip, take the grip you're actually looking for, which is this one. Here, at the armpits, either like so, or like so. I leave it up to you. Okay? So every time I feel an opponent break a grip, I go in. Now, can you hold this grip forever? No, you can't, because he can pommel around and start taking it out. You have to be light with your grips. You're not working with a gi where you can take the cloth and lock it up, lock into the belt and come up and hold those grips for extended periods of time. No gi, the grips go faster and they come faster. That sounds terrible, sorry. But you have to be able to, as it were, lose a grip and take a grip. The pace of the gripping is much, much faster than it would normally be in the case of gi jiu-jitsu. So say, for example, someone takes wrist control on me. As soon as I break that grip, boom, the hands go in and we've got the grip we want. Okay? So I have to grip and move. He puts me in a guillotine grip. I put the head in. Even as he recovers, my hands are where they want to be. Okay. He comes in, takes overhook. Now our hands are where they want to be. He comes in, takes wrists. I go through, I take his wrists, I clear them, boom, hands are in, and we're ready to play. Okay. In this sense, we're breaking a grip and immediately going into the grip that we really want, which is double biceps. You have the choice between going thumbs on top or in here. This is a slightly safer grip to take, but they're both pretty good. You're not going to be hanging out here for long periods of time. Okay, once you get this grip, it's time to stand up, which we'll be looking at very soon. Okay, so again, every time we go to break a grip, don't just break it and stay there. Otherwise, it's going to be here all day. You're still locked up in his closed guard. The idea is every time you get a broken grip, there's going to be exposure. And as a result, we're in a position to start the action of standing up. Okay? Regardless of what grip it is. Thank you. So, when it comes to no-gi, closed guard situations, you have to be able to deal with your opponent's grips. You have to be able to negate his grips and break them while you're inside a closed guard. We've seen the most common forms of grip, how to break them, and then our philosophy, which is you have to immediately go from the grip break to the grip you really are looking for, which is double biceps. And then from there, we're going to look at standing up. With regards to the various attacks that our opponent can make, if he goes to sit up to a given side, I have to be able to return his shoulders to the mat. Okay? So from here, you can go under an arm, you can go over the top of your head, your opponent's head, and then from immediately return them down to the mat, and then place your two hands into our favorite position right there. Okay? So again, he goes to sit up, and then from here, we bring him back down to the mat, and the hands go in. Okay? If I see my opponent start to maneuver to an angle, as he gets advantageous angle, I must take my body and shift it so that I square up to him again. If he starts getting angle on me and I don't react, he goes armbar, it's a problem. So every time I see this guy getting angle, I put my legs up and go back in. The other solution to angle, he goes to get into angle. From here, I just pop up and I put a knee in the middle. And now my hips are higher than his hips. It's going to be very hard for him to attack. So, first solution, square up. He gets angle, we put our legs up and square up. He gets angle, we pop up and put a knee in the middle. We play from in here. Okay? With regards to an opponent getting a top lock. Never try to pull out of a top lock. You'll give up a triangle, etc. So when he gets a top lock, bring your shoulder forward to his shoulder and then regrip, double biceps. He goes top lock, we go right to right, double bicep. He goes top lock, we go left to left, double bicep. Okay? So when the legs come up high, it's up to us to return his feet to our lower back. If he locks closed guard, that's where I want his feet locked. The higher his feet lock, the more challenging it becomes. So our whole thing is always to ensure that his feet are down in our lower back. The more those feet walk up, the worse it gets, especially when he gets angle. Now he's got a top lock. So when people start getting height with their feet, the onus is on us to return his feet to our lower back. Okay? So this is how we negate grip, and this is how we negate danger when we're inside someone's closed guard. Please understand that all these little techniques and nuances that I showed always have a common ending. Double biceps. Every time you break a grip, every time you relieve danger, back to double biceps. And then once we get double biceps, then it's time to get up. Now, it's time for us to start looking at the idea of opening a closed guard, one of the fundamental skills of the sport of jiu-jitsu. Most people get taught to open up a closed guard with a gi. And if you're anything like me, you were probably taught something like this. You get a hold of your training partner's two lapels, you bring them together, you get a hold of your training partner's belt, gi pants, or sleeve cuff, and then from here, depending on whether you have sleeve cuff or pants, you'll stand up with a given leg, and then from this situation, you usually control your training partner's sleeve cuff, and then use either reach back or knee pushes to open up your training partner's closed guard. Okay, and it's a fine method. It's based around a very simple principle that almost all jiu-jitsu students are familiar with from white belt onwards, and that's the idea of posture first, stand up second. Now, this is an excellent way of thinking when you work with the gi, because the two lapels give you tremendous forward stability. So that if Placido uses his legs to pull me in, I use the lapels to hold my posture. Because my posture is upright, it keeps my opponent's guard down at my lower back. We've already seen that the more the guard advances up my back, the more dangerous he becomes to me. So this posture first mentality makes a lot of sense. However, when we work without a gi, you no longer have the security of the lapels to hold your body in place. And what you find is when your opponent goes to violently pull you in with the legs while he's immobilizing your hands, you get broken down to the mat much, much easier. As a result, every time you get broken down to the mat, your opponent's legs come up higher and higher on your lower back. And there's this constant battle where you're constantly trying to negate his grips. You're breaking out of grips, and then you go back up to posture. But as soon as you get back up to posture, your opponent breaks you back down, and then you have to fight through his grips. You get back up to posture, you put his feet in the lower back, and this just goes on and on and on. If I use the conventional grip breaking methods, okay, and I break a grip, he just grabs him with the other arm. And then you're like, oh man, you break out of that one, and he just grabs you with the other arm. Then from here, you put the hand on, you go to pull out, and he just grabs you with the other arm. You break out of an overhook, and then from here, he comes in, he just grabs an underhook on the other side. You break out of that, and he takes a collar tie. And you break out of that collar tie, and he goes collar tie on the other side. And you're just like, my God, like it's just this never-ending cycle of grip to grip to grip. You break one grip, and then his legs are going up your back, you got to posture back up, and you haven't made any forward progress. Now, 1 minute goes by, 2 minutes goes by. Your coach is looking at you like, dude, you got to get up. You got to open up his closed guard. Minutes are going by here. This is a 10-minute match. We've lost 3 minutes. Okay? That's what you want to avoid. My philosophy of opening up a closed guard and a gi does the exact opposite of convention. Convention is that I should posture first and then stand up. The philosophy I teach my students is stand up first, posture second. Why? Because as long as I stay on my knees, even if I do break a grip, my opponent will simply re-grip on the other side. As opposed to the gi situation where I can control my training partner's sleeve cuffs, so when he goes to grip me on the other side, posture makes it difficult and he can't go from one side to the other because I'm controlling one of his hands. Okay? So it's my earnest belief to break convention and get your knees off the floor first, and then do your grip fighting, grip breaking second. Okay, I'll explain myself now. Once I get hands inside, don't procrastinate, because it's pretty easy for Passagem to pommel inside and get back in. So once you get that double bicep, come up 1 and 2. Okay, even if Passagem has my head and I cannot break the grip, just stand up. Even with your posture broken forward, even with his feet starting to come up your back, just get your knees off the mat. Why? Because when I break one grip with my knees off the mat, when Placido goes for the second grip, he can't reach. He can only go left to right when my knees are on the floor. Once my knees leave the mat, he can't go left or right. And for the first time, you can stop that eternal cycle of grip break, grip break, grip break, and just get up and start passing your opponent's guard. Okay? So once again, we start off in a closed guard. From here, I see my opponent get into strong grips. So strong, in fact, that I feel like I can't even break them. So I just take my hands to the inside position. That you can always do, hold tight. I don't care how tight he holds you. You can always get your hands inside. Then from this position, with double biceps in place, just get your knees off the mat. From here, break the grip and come up into vertical posture. Even if his guard is locked high on my back, vertical posture will always bring it back down to your lower back where you want it. From a side-on position, he's got high guard. Once I break the first grip, you can't get the second. Don't just stand up, do this. 1, 2, 3, 4, and put the lock of his guard on your lower back. He's got high guard. No hip. He's high. If I just go to stand up on a high guard, it's impossible. So walk and bring it down your lower back. Vertical posture is your goal. Your shoulders directly over your hips. That's my goal. So once again, step by step, my opponent is a strong grip fighter. If my opponent's a weak grip fighter, just do what we saw in the previous move. Control his wrists, get double biceps and stand up. But at World Championship level, no one's a weak grip fighter, they're all tough. Okay, so we go in, we get our various grips, and we get our knees off the mat. His guard is high. I break the first grip and I hand walk to bring the grip of his guard to my lower back. Then I come up to vertical posture. My knees are bent, but my body, my shoulders are directly over my hips. And this is where I want to do my work. Okay, thank you, Pastor. Now let's have a look at it solo. When you go to stand up, don't just stand up like this. It's very weak and awkward. What we want to do, double biceps. I bring my hips off my ankles. Don't try to stand up on your ankles. You have no strength there. Obey the 90-degree rule and bring your legs to 90 degrees. Not down here where you're weak, as we saw earlier in the video. Up here where you're strong. Now, first step goes here. So two things happen. One knee comes off the mat, the other knee turns out. This means that when I go to stand, I come up strong. Now, hand walk to vertical. And from vertical, we do all of our work to open the guard. So, theory. The theory behind what we do. If I stay on my knees and I break a grip, he just goes from one side to the other and I never get to stand up. Only when I take my knees off the mat do I end the cycle. If his grips become progressively weaker and weaker until there's nothing left. If his guard is high, walk. And then finish here, vertical. Square posture, shoulders directly over hips, knees slightly flexed. Don't be dead straight like this. It's hard to base out. Okay? Again, he's got me. Don't go into endless battles where you just spend 3-4 minutes of a 10-minute match trying to clear your head and never get away. As soon as you're down here, get the inside position, double biceps, clear it. Hand walk, vertical posture. This is the squad philosophy. We break with tradition. We don't go posture first, stand up second. We stand up first and posture second. Your goals, first, double biceps. Second, get your knees off the mat. Third, clear any form of grips over your head. Make sure that his feet come down towards your lower back. Fourth, attain vertical posture. If you can go through that simple 4-step procedure, you will be able to stand up quickly and smartly against even strong grip fighting opponents with a strong pull from their closed guard. We looked at this idea of standing up and opening a closed guard. We've seen that the squad philosophy that I coach to my students is almost the exact opposite of convention. Convention, which is derived from the gi game, is that I should get posture first so that my opponent's lock of his guard goes towards my lower back and I stand up second. That's a splendid way of operating whenever you have the security of the gi to operate. Okay, but it runs into severe problems when we work without the gi. Because my hands aren't anchored to my opponent's gi jacket or to his belt or to his gi pants or to his sleeve cuff, now you got a problem. That the pull of his legs can break my posture. And then you're fighting your way out of grips. If you grip fight on your knees, there is no reason, even if you're a good grip fighter, why your opponent can't just go side to side on you. And you end up in these protracted grip battles where just nothing happens for minutes at a time. Guys, always remember, when you're in a competitive situation, you got two opponents. One is the other guy, and the other one is the clock. If you're in a 10-minute match, and 5 minutes is wasted trying to open up someone's closed guard, you just made your task twice as difficult. Okay? Spend the least time possible in a closed guard, and the match will always go a lot better for you. Okay, this is a situation where you can only lose. I can't pass my opponent's guard from here. I can't attack. As long as his feet are locked behind me, he can beat me, but I can't beat him. Okay, so your number one priority here is not just to open up his closed guard, it's to do so with the minimum amount of time. Time is just as important a consideration as anything else in a jiu-jitsu match. So, my advice is stop that endless left-right cycle of grip breaking. If my knees are on the floor, the cycle just never stops and time gets wasted. So stop the cycle by first getting your knees off the floor so that when you break a grip on the right, he can't go into the other side on the left. Even if he did, the grip would be so weak that now it's all gone. Now the only grips he can make are down here, and we'll deal with that later, don't worry, I promise. Okay? But the upper body grips are now gone. The only grip he has now is the grip of his feet, which he wants as high as possible. And we've seen, if we walk our hands and come up to vertical posture, this will always return his feet to a good position like so. Okay? With the feet on the lower back, now I can start opening up his closed guard. So that's the philosophy. I know a lot of you are probably saying, wait a minute, man. That's literally the exact opposite of what my coach told me for my whole jiu-jitsu career. Are you sure? First, watch my students in operation. Okay, they all spend very little time inside an opponent's closed guard. And what you will see is our philosophy is we prioritize getting our knees off the mat first, everything else second, even posture. If you don't do that, as I said, you end up in these protracted grip battles where just nothing happens for minutes at a time. Time gets wasted and your work gets more difficult. Now, some obvious problems here. What if my opponent has his feet locked up so high on my back that it feels very, very risky just to stand up? Okay, if I stand up now and my arms get crunched, I can get sucked right into an armbar, even as I'm trying to stand up, right? That wouldn't be good. Okay, I'll grant you that. How do we deal with this problem? When I see everything is up high, make sure your elbows stay in the outside position. If my elbows start drifting, that's when they get taken across the center line. That's when problems go from bad to worse. Okay? So when we see this kind of thing going, watch my head. Even if my opponent's holding my head and causing all kinds of problems, when the grip is high with his legs, bring your head forward. And his feet naturally come down. Okay? Then return. So when the grip is high with his legs, just bring yourself head over head. Then from here, hands in, clear, up into vertical posture. Okay? What if you're actually in a top lock? Okay, this is not a smart time for you to be standing up. Go back to what we saw earlier in the video. From here, shoulder to shoulder, hands in the biceps, and go up and get your knees off the mat. Okay? You break any given grip. Let's say Placido has overhook in here. We know what our solution to that problem is. We come in, hands go in bicep, and we're up. Even if, as I break the grip here and come out, Placido goes collar tie on the other side, just stand up. Break it, prioritize knees off the mat, vertical posture, and we're ready to start opening up a closed guard. Okay? So, all the risks that people tell you about, that high guard, switching to an armbar, these things. These are all risks, yes, but they're acceptable risks. The greatest risk of all is letting time waste to a point where 6 minutes of a match go by, you've done nothing, you're tired, frustrated, your opponent's gaining confidence as he seems to be controlling you quite easily from his closed guard. He gets many opportunities to attack you from his closed guard for 6 minutes. You get 0 opportunities to attack him. So it's going to come down to a decision. They're looking at the other guy. Now you feel you're under pressure. Finally, you open up the guy's closed guard. There's 4 minutes left. Now you have to take big risks to make up for lost ground. That's, to me, a worse solution than taking a much smaller risk for a very short period of time early in the match, quickly opening up the closed guard, and then getting to play your open game. That's why I teach this philosophy. Saves time, isn't nearly as risky as people have you believe, and addresses the reality of competition. Now, guys, there's a philosophy which I often espouse to my students, which is a lot of times in jiu-jitsu instruction, you'll hear people say certain things, but then when you watch them in competition, they do the exact opposite. Okay, and nowhere is this more prevalent than in the case of no-gi opening a closed guard. You'll hear people say, "Oh, posture is king," and when you actually watch them in world championship competition against other people the same skill level as themselves, they do what I just did. They stand up, they get their knees off first, and then they clear everything and go to work. Okay, so this is a good example of people telling you one thing but doing another. Okay, make sure your actions are in alignment with what the best people do rather than what the best people say. Okay? So one more time. We're under pressure here. He's got a hold of us. His guard comes up high on my back. So I come forward with my head. Once we've done that, we prioritize knees off the mat. When he goes for a second grip, difficult. Even if his guard was locked up high on my back, it's a pretty easy thing to hand walk up and then go up into vertical posture, and now we're ready to play. His upper body grip game is now gone. The only grip game he has now is lower body, and we'll look at how to deal with that very soon. We've done a good job of getting double bicep. We've done a good job of ensuring our opponent's feet, the lock of his guard goes down towards our lower back. We've done a good job of getting our knees off the mat so that we're not trapped in these eternal grip fighting sequences down on our knees. And as a result, we've got to vertical posture. The big question now is, how are we going to open up his closed guard? There are essentially only 3 methods that I teach. All 3 are highly effective. I'm going to start with the one which my students use the most. Okay, and this is the reach back method. So, Placido has me in closed guard. We've seen that our general philosophy is we want to get to situations where we get double biceps, either like so or like so, and even if he's gripping me, we just don't care. We stand up, and then from a situation where our knees are off the mat, we go in and we clear grips. As our head comes up, our opponent finds it harder and harder to control the upper body, and as a result, we're now in a situation where we can come up into vertical posture. Yes, he can grab your legs, don't worry, I promise you we'll cover that soon, but for now, just opening a closed guard. From the vertical posture, our shoulders are directly over our hips, our knees are flexed. We're going to take one hand and we're going to turn our shoulders and bend our arm at least 90 degrees, probably slightly more, okay? As a result, just lock him down high, buddy. As a result, from here, I'm able to come back and punch my hand elbow deep inside my training partner's ankles, okay? It doesn't matter which ankle he has crossed over, irrelevant, okay? So I come up, I make a slight turn of my shoulders, quarter turn. Don't get crazy and start turning your whole body where you start to lose your balance, okay? You know you've made the right turn. When this hand stays on the hip, that limits you to a quarter turn, okay? So don't turn with both and then you end up in trouble. One hand here, quarter turn. When you punch through, the back of your hand faces your own body. Don't punch through like so. It's going to require more shoulder flexibility out of you. Okay? So I come in, back of hand, punch in, elbow deep. Once I get elbow deep, I flex so that we're 90 degrees with our arms. And all we do here is just unhook by lifting. As a result, we get a nice unhooking of the ankles. From this position, we're now in a situation where we can start the action of walking backwards, always opposite side of the grip. Don't go back on this side because you're carrying the weight of his leg and you're going to lose your balance. Okay? So if I grip right, I step back left. And as a result, we're in good position now to play. Let's have a look at all that again. Placido has me with a good high lock, high feet. From this position, double biceps, walking up into vertical posture. One hand stays connected to the hip, I make a quarter turn. My hand comes in, back of the hand on my lower back, and then I just turn my thumb outwards. Don't have your thumb pointing to yourself, turn the thumb out so you can get that good flex. Opposite leg steps back, create distance. Don't just stand over him. We can go right to Ashigurami and all kinds of other nightmares. Okay. Make sure you move back to a distance where he has to reach to extend. And that's going to make him vulnerable to passes that we'll look at shortly. So once again, the method we use more than any other to open up a closed guard. From here, he's got a hold of my head, for example. First, clear, vertical posture. Quarter turn, from the quarter turn, hand goes in, punches in, elbow deep. Lift, opposite leg comes back, and we're in business. Okay? Common problems. Let's move back to solo. Is that enough? Yeah. Common problems. Guys do this. They do a good job of standing up but when they reach back, they're not vertical. And as a result, you need tremendous flexibility to get inside. Okay? In addition, if Placido pulls me, it's a disaster. So make sure we're vertical. Knees are slightly bent. If your legs are too straight and you reach back, even a small pull will immediately off balance you. So from here, legs flexed a little. Don't have your legs too far apart. Common mistake. People think, oh, if my legs are further apart, my base is wider. Nope. You're only stable this way with a wide base. You're less stable this way. It's an illusion. Don't fall for it. Keep your feet slightly wider than shoulder width and make sure your toes are in front of you. If your feet point outwards, you have no forward base. He pulls and you get broken. So make sure the feet point forwards slightly more than shoulder width. Slightly flexed. And from here, look how we make the quarter turn. Hand goes in, hand, back of hand facing your butt, elbow deep, lift. Opposite leg. And now we've got distance and we're ready to play. Okay? That's our favorite method of opening a closed guard without the gi. Now, we just looked at what is probably the single best method of opening up a closed guard without a gi, which is to achieve vertical posture and use the reach back method. Nonetheless, the reach back method is not the only method we use. There are sometimes, usually when you have someone with very short, compact legs who can nonetheless hold a good closed guard, where reaching back may not be an easy option, where it's difficult to get the hand elbow deep inside your opponent's ankles. Under these circumstances, we will take two hands and put them on one knee and use a pushing method to open up our training partner's guard. So let's have a look at this. From a situation where Placido has me in closed guard, we know what the basic modus operandi is. From here, we're always looking to work our way into situations where we establish inside control. From here, we come up into a position where our knees are off the mat so that when we go into grip fights, our opponent can't go side to side. And we can always work to get up into vertical posture. Now, from vertical posture, we normally start with a hand on the hip and make a quarter turn. Previously, we went all the way back for the reach back method. This time, you feel for whatever reason, there's not a lot of space to negotiate with there. It's usually when your opponent has short, compact legs. Under these circumstances, a very good and effective method is for us to place one hand inside our training partner's knee, just like so. The second hand comes across and backs it up. Now, I'm just going to shift our angle so they can see from the camera. Now, when I place the first hand on, lock tight, buddy. When I place the first hand on, do you see how my arm is bent? The bent arm is not a very strong pushing arm. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cock my hips out to the side and straighten out my arm, just like so. As a result, I can quickly get two hands to our training partner's knee. And as Placido locks on tight, 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 we're just going to focus on shake, shake, shake that opens up our training partner's guard. I'm going to get my knee inside his knee. I don't want Placido quickly getting to inside position on me, okay? Either with his foot or his knee. They're both bad. So we're going to focus on pushing down and joining our elbow and our knee together. So when Placido tries to get any form of inside position, either with the foot or hook inside, or with the knee, it's very, very difficult. If I don't join knee and elbow, he can easily get inside position with either knee or foot and cause problems for me, okay? So, once again, we're inside our training partner's closed guard. From here, we're able to get inside position. We come up, we clear, and come up into vertical posture. From vertical posture, we place the hand on the knee. My whole body comes out so I can start straightening out my arm and go 2-on-1. From the 2-on-1, we shake, shake, shake so we can push the knee and get our knee inside with elbow and knee joined. That means he can only get the other leg inside, and that's not enough for him to go into work, okay? From here, as he goes to work for leg locks, it's difficult. And from here, we can come in and crowd our training partner and go into strong passing positions. Seen from another angle. We start off, hands inside. We come up, clear away the grips, and come up into vertical posture. Hand goes in, body comes over, shake, 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 and step back. Elbow and knee join, And as a result, we're in a superb position to go forward and start the pass in action. This is a very, very effective way of opening up the closed guard anytime you can't use the preferred reach back option. Now, we've looked at two really solid methods of opening up a closed guard with no gi, the reach back method and the 2-on-1 knee post. There's always going to come a day you can't get vertical posture. Both of the previous moves required vertical posture. And a natural question for you guys to be asking is, what if I can't do that? What if for some reason I get my knees off the ground, but I'm struggling to get vertical? The guy's pulling in with his legs. Maybe his guard is very high on my back and I'm having a hard time posturing up, whatever the reason. In these circumstances, we use a simple knee post, right at our training partner's tailbone, and use the knee to open up our training partner's guard. So we're in Placido's closed guard. We know the basic squad philosophy: hands inside, coming up, knees off the floor, grip break, and come up. But for whatever reason, perhaps because Placido has locked his guard high on my back and is pulling in strongly with his knees, I'm feeling it's a real challenge to go up into vertical. Under these circumstances, we're going to take our knee and place it right here. I'm going to use my other knee to shift his tailbone onto my right knee. It's very important that my right knee, I'm going to use my right knee to open his guard, be placed directly at the tailbone. Anything else is inadequate. So I go here, and I get my knee as close to the tailbone as possible. Of course, Placido will want to shift his tailbone to protect himself. Now I use my other knee to pass it right onto the tailbone, so I get really precise. Now I just step my second leg back, and from here I just use that knee in the tailbone to open up my training partner's guard. Now guys, here's a word to the wise. Most people are going to teach you to sit down. It's not wrong to do this, okay? It's not wrong. But if Placido has very long legs, he can close his guard right where it is, and now knee tilt me this way, and I have no base, okay? This was the favorite tactic of a good friend of mine, Hodger Gracie, and he would often use this. He would allow people, Hodger had very long legs, he would allow people to hit this move and then just off balance them. He worked in an atmosphere where there weren't very many leg locks where he was working, so it was a very good tactic for him to use. Very successful with this. So I recommend a different finish to this. As someone locks on, once you come up and you get the knee close, and then you use your other knee to find, can you feel that, Placido?
Yep.
Here I'm off target.
Yep.
I could not open your guard here. Look at the importance of my left knee. It shifts it right onto the tailbone. When I feel the tailbone, I go back and I open the closed guard. But I don't set, I stand right back up. So there's no follow-up to the move, okay? Break his ankles apart, don't go back down and let him relock his ankles, okay? Just stand back up again. So, Placido can feel it, but you can't see it on the camera lockup, buddy. It's super important. I'm going to demonstrate this from different angles, so don't worry, I'll show a different angle soon, where the knee must find the tailbone. People mistakenly think this is some kind of pain move, where it's like, oh, you put the knee in the middle, it's so painful, the guy opens his guard. Nope, it's got nothing to do with it. At World Championship level, people ignore pain. Pain is not the path to forward progress. It's mechanics that is the path to forward progress. You're using the hard tailbone as a leverage point, as a kind of fulcrum, where you can move back and he can't follow your movement. So it's very, very important you find the tailbone with your kneecap. And it's your other knee which enables you to do this, even when he's resisting and trying to get his tailbone as far away from you as possible. So once again, we stand up. From here, he's got head grips, for example. We're breaking off those grips, but for whatever reason, we can't get up to vertical. It's normally because he's pulling in with his knees, okay? So from here, look how I walk, and I place my knee as close as I can, but he's probably going to be shifting to get away from me. So I put my other knee on the outside of his hip, and I pass, using my left knee, his tailbone onto my right knee. Now from here, I start moving back. Okay, back, knees coming in. That time Placido's got short legs, so it broke pretty easily. Come back up, Placido. If he was longer legged, then I might have to go temporarily to a knee. I'll use the weight, my lat muscles, coming down as I push and break it. And then I come back up to standing. Okay? Now, from a different angle. Okay, I get up off my knees. I need to find his tailbone. So I get relatively close. Then I use my other knee, I use my other knee to pass. And there it is. My knee finds the tailbone. As soon as it found the tailbone, everything comes back. Downward pressure on the stomach. Step, step, step. And there it is. Okay? From another angle. Guys, a very useful point here. Take short, choppy steps to get what you want. Don't take big steps. Short, choppy steps are the order of the day. Okay, I need precision here. I need to find my training partner's tailbone. So once we come up, 1, 2, 3. I'm close. 1, 2. I found the tailbone. Short, choppy steps. 1, 2, 3. Chest pressure down. And the guard opens. Can you see? It's a series of small steps that gets it done rather than clumping around. Okay? So, closed guard situation. I come up. We're in place. And it's done. Okay? Common problem. You get halfway through the move and the guy shifts off the tailbone. So now you've hit the move successfully a few times. People are anticipating, they understand what the problem is, they start shifting around on you. If I come up, I found the tailbone and then I feel him shifting. I'm losing my balance. As I lose the battle at the tailbone, come right back up to vertical and play between those two methods. Put them in a dilemma. If you lose the tailbone, win vertical. If you can't win vertical, back to the tailbone. So, I try to stand up. I try to go to vertical posture. He pulls me in. I try to go vertical posture. He pulls me in. I play the tailbone. He shifts off the tailbone, right back up to vertical posture. And then play any one of your favorite methods from there. Okay? Between these three methods, reach back, 2 on 1 knee, knee post. You're going to have a very, very strong, robust way of opening an opponent's closed guard with minimum fuss and minimum time. And that's what it's all about. Now, there's an obvious elephant in the room here. We've been standing up inside a closed guard, opening it, dealing with our opponent's grips, etc., and we've seen that once our knees leave the mat, then our opponent loses his ability to go side to side with his upper body grips. But of course, there's an obvious thing here. Now, because you're standing square in front of your opponent, he can go into lower body grips. He has two basic choices. There are other choices, but by far the two most important ones will be double ankle from the outside or single scoop from the inside. Okay, and those are going to be the two grips you're going to have to work against every time. Coming back. Understand that anytime you're square and vertical, your feet will be exposed to an opponent. Okay, so the option of grabbing your ankles is always there for them, whether it be double outside or single inside, it's always there. Now, what can they do from this position? They can knock you backwards, okay? I'm going to give you a little piece of advice right from the start. There's a mantra which I coach my students day in, day out. Whatever problems that you have being knocked backwards as you stand up into vertical posture are insignificant with the problems of being pulled forwards into a closed guard, okay? The most damaging moves from closed guard almost always involve pulling you forwards into problems. If he pulls my elbow across the center line and forwards, he gets my back. If he pulls an arm forward while the other is back, he gets triangles. If he pulls me forward and goes into a high guard, top block, he goes into arm bars. Okay? If he pulls me forward with hands on the floor, he gets kimuras. He gets guillotines. And so all of the major submissions in the sport come from him pulling me forwards. Okay? Especially when I'm on my knees, but even when I'm up on my feet, I can be pulled forward into triangles, arm bars, etc., etc. Okay? The costs of being pulled forward are very, very dear indeed. Okay? You can be pulled forward into submissions. When you get knocked backwards, you tend to get knocked backwards into sweeps that take you backwards. Okay? So even in a worst case scenario, worst case, you get knocked down and the guy gets on top of you. You lose sweep points. Worst case scenario, getting pulled forwards, you get finished. Okay, now getting swept is bad, but getting finished, it's a lot worse. That's the end of the match. Okay, it's the most definitive end in the sport. In addition, getting swept backwards, it's harder for your opponent to come up on top and complete the sweep. When they sweep you forwards, they have body contact. So for example, if Placido takes my arm across, then scoops inside my leg, and then from here hits a pendulum sweep, because he has contact, not only does he sweep me going forwards, he mounts me as well. Okay? Because there's body connection when they sweep you forwards. So that he gets sweep points, and very often they get mount points as well. When they sweep you backwards, there's no body connection. Okay? This is a very important point. So all of the forward sweeps involve body connection that doubles the amount of trouble you get put into. Backward sweeps, very little body connection. It's just leg connection. Now we're going to see later on in this video, you can actually use this in very positive ways to go into leg lock action. Okay? So his sweep backwards may well end up giving you submissions. So it's actually a risky gambit for him to employ. Considerations like these always make us think in the following simple phrase. Whatever problems you have getting swept backwards from vertical posture are insignificant compared with the potential problems of being pulled forwards. So if you give me a choice between standing up in vertical and being swept backwards versus staying on my knees getting pulled forwards, I'm going to go with backwards choice every time. Okay? And the good news is, if you do get swept backwards, it's going to open up a lot of leg lock opportunities, and because there's no body connection, it's pretty easy to prevent your opponent from actually scoring on you. In a realistic way of thinking, guys, here's my advice. When you go to stand up inside your opponent's closed guard in a square fashion, the type that I'm coaching you, you will often be knocked down to your butt. I would say like somewhere between 30 and 50% of the time on someone your own skill level and size. Just get back up. I'm going to show you how to do that very soon. It's not that difficult because he doesn't have close body connection to you. He's only got leg to leg connection. It's not that big of a deal. Yes, it looks messy. You get knocked down. Okay? Doesn't look pretty, doesn't look perfect. You just get back up and keep going. When my students fight each other in the gym, at least 50% of the time they go to stand up inside a closed guard, they'll get knocked down by the other guy. They're fighting someone roughly their own skill level. It's perfectly normal. It looks messy, but that's the way jiu-jitsu is. Remember that real jiu-jitsu is not like a Hollywood movie. You don't come out and look smooth and perfect and look like a Bruce Lee or a Steven Seagal. It's not the way competition works. It's messy, back and forth, and it's filled with up and down action, and finally one guy prevails. That's reality. So keep that in mind as you go to stand up inside a closed guard. With that in mind, let's look at our first method of preventing being knocked backwards. Okay, you know what? I'll show the first one solo so they can see important detail. Okay, when a lot of people go to stand up to vertical posture, they stand with their weight evenly distributed between their feet, and that's natural and normal to do. But when it's time to actually open your opponent's guard, it's very important that you put weight onto one foot. Why? Because when someone goes to grab your ankles, if your weight is evenly distributed, especially if you've stood up with your feet too far apart, that's just a disaster. Okay, remember our feet should always be slightly wider than shoulder width. This enables me to put weight over one leg. If I can put weight over one leg, then I can bring the second leg up. If I have my weight equally distributed, then it takes time to shift and step. And in that time, you can be knocked down. So my general recommendation is whenever you go to open a closed guard, put your weight onto one leg. I know this is counterintuitive because it feels more stable when you're in a wider stance with your weight equally distributed. It feels stable in everyday life. However, Tiago, if Placido is in front and has my two ankles, it's not stable. Okay, any tiny bump will put me on my ass. Okay, you're much better off having your weight on one leg. In situations like this, it's very easy now because my weight is on one leg to pick the second leg up and step out. And so what is seemingly counterintuitive actually turns out to be true. If my weight is equally distributed and he goes to bump me back, it takes too long for me to make the shift to one leg and I fall. But if I start with my weight on one leg, every time he goes to bump me, it's an easy thing to step out. Okay? So my general recommendation is when you go to work in these situations, it's okay to be here before you go to open up the closed guard. But once you see your opponent open his feet and put his knees in the middle, you know what his gambit is. He's trying to sweep you backwards. Have your weight on one foot or the other. And as a result, you can quickly pick the leg up and step out. It'll take too long if your legs are far apart or if your weight is right in the middle. So your head will move over one of your legs. And as a result, it'll be very easy to pick the opposite leg up. So let's look at what Placido has to do to knock me down. Once I go up to my feet, he must grasp my ankles. And from here, he must open his closed guard and bring his knees together. If he can do this, he can bump me and put me down. He cannot do it if he maintains a closed guard. If his guard remains closed,
It's tough,
he
yeah.
can't knock me down. He has to open and use the push of his knees to put me on my back. So, it's an easy thing to read when he wants to sweep me. As soon as I see the knees come in, my head goes over one leg. Hold tight. I can't bring my foot backwards because Placido's fingers are stopping me. But there's nothing stopping my foot moving forwards. So when my weight goes on one side, I kick forwards and then I step back. Now, as he holds my second leg, I just go in the direction his fingers are pointing and he loses me. So once again, I stand up. I see my opponent's knees come together. I kick out. He holds tight to my second leg. Look, I just take my foot off the floor and kick out. When I turn to kick out, I don't have my foot planted on the mat where it catches. I take my heel up, so I kick out easily. I come up from this position. I see his knees come together. My head is already over. He goes to bump his knees up and sit in and knock me down. To knock me down, he has to bring his knees bumping up, and that's how I fall. So, as soon as I see the knees come down, weight goes over. He goes to bump his knees up, and I step out. Second leg comes out, and now we're ready to play. So this is the first and most important method of preventing the knockdown. Getting your weight over to one side and kicking out. Now, we've been looking at this elephant in the room, that anytime we go into a square stand-up, my ankles are always there for my opponent to grip and knock me backwards. Let's go further into this now. We looked at one method to prevent us knocking backwards, which is the kick-out method. We saw that if we put our head over one of our legs, one leg becomes light, very easy to kick out and stop ourselves from falling backwards. The reality is, however, if you have a fast, aggressive, talented opponent, roughly around 50% of the time he stands up in a closed guard, he will, if he tries hard, to knock you down to your butt. Don't panic. It's not the end of the world. Getting knocked down is not the problem. The problem is him knocking you down and getting on top of you. I don't care if I get knocked down. I care if I get knocked down and he gets up on top and scores. That's the issue. Getting knocked down is pretty easy to control. Remember always that in your favor, your opponent only has leg-to-leg connection. He has no upper body connection to you. So it's actually pretty hard for him just to get up and score on you, okay? So let's have a look at this now. Okay, we do a good job of standing up in our training partner's closed guard. He grabs a hold of our two ankles, closes his knees, and then pushes up with the knees and knocks us down, okay? The bad news is you got knocked down to your butt. Even your shoulders are on the floor. The good news is he has no upper body connection to you whatsoever. So the first thing I have to do is stop him from climbing over my hips. Right now, Placido's hips and my hips are the same level. He has no advantage over me, and I have no advantage over him. If I fall with my knees apart, Placido can put a hand on the floor and get his hips higher than my hips. And if those hips come up, it's a problem. He can sit forward into the mount. Okay? Back to your position. So, the first thing we have to do is stop him heisting on top. In order to heist, look what has to happen. A hand or elbow has to go on the floor. I can't stop that because it's too far away. So that I can't stop. But there's a second thing. His knee on that side has to open. And if it opens, his hips can go higher than mine. Okay? That's the weakness. Again, I can't stop his hands. They're too far away from me. I don't control that. So I don't even care about it. I don't even focus on it. But one thing I can control is the hips. As he tries to come up, watch his knees. As he heists, the knees come apart. If I don't let the knees come apart, he can't heist. So I pinch my knees. Now when he goes to heist, it's physically impossible. Okay? Now, I can just give a little bridge and watch his feet. His feet pop up into the sky. Now it's my turn to heist. But when I heist, I'm going to control his ankles. So I come up and I heist like so. We're both now in a position where we can both heist. But there's a problem for Placido. When he goes to heist, his foot is higher than his own head. When I go to heist, my feet are on the ground. So when we go to heist up together, you will always have a tactical advantage that you can use. Okay? If he goes to get up, you'll have his back. If he falls to his butt, you'll be passing his guard. So once again, either way you're happy. We come up, just like so. Before I can get anything going, he drops and knocks me down. Immediately I pinch. So when Placido goes to heist up, it's physically impossible. Now from here, I give a little bridge and collect. From this position, it's pretty easy for us to come up to here. So many ways for us to go now. As we go to heist up together, you can catch the inside of the leg. You can expose your training partner's back. If he faces me, then you're in a guard pass situation and his guard is open now. Okay? Either way, his guard is open and either you take his back or you're ready to start passing, which is what you wanted to do in the first place. So, once again, he goes in, knocks me down. I pinch the knees together. He tries to heist. Impossible. Pop. When we go to heist together now, we have a different advantage. Okay? Alternatively, we've seen that when we get knocked down and we freeze him in place, the only way he can heist is to bring his hips up and open his knee. If I'm too late with my knees and I see my opponent hit this, I just post inside his knee. I take my second hand and put it on top. So I just go here and here. My feet are on the ground. So there's no reason why I can't simply turn from flat to on my side. When he goes to get on top, you're in the perfect position. Is this okay?
Yeah, it's fine.
And just then roll him through. Okay? So once again, he knocks me down. I pinch. From here, he's so strong, or perhaps I'm a little lackadaisical, and the knees come up and he heists. If I stay flat on my back, I can't get my knee inside, and he might mount. But if I turn onto my side, he comes on top, right into Ashigarami. Okay? So, that's how we deal with situations where we get knocked down to our butt. It's not the end of the world. In fact, it's pretty damn common. On roughly half the occasions that you stand up in a square stance into vertical posture on someone who wants to use this method to knock you down, you'll be knocked down. So long as you keep a calm head, keep the knees together, prevent the hip heist, you'll come out just fine. You'll come out either with a leg lock entry or an opportunity to get on top of your opponent, either at the back if he turns away, or passing his guard if he turns to face you. Now, we're looking at the idea of standing up inside a closed guard and the fact that anytime we stand up square in front of our opponent, he will always be able to access our ankles. We've looked at situations where he grabbed our two ankles from the outside. Now it's time we looked at situations where our opponent scoops the ankle on one side. Let's have a look at this now. Okay, so previously we looked at the idea of us coming up and him grabbing two ankles from the outside. Now we're looking at a situation where Placido goes in like so. This is a great way for him to put his other hand on the floor behind him and knock me in a backwards direction. The knockdown occurs because my knee opens. I can't move it. The knee opens, all his weight goes over my hip, and I fall down. So everything is predicated on Placido rotating my knee in an outwards direction, Loctite. So we need the exact opposite. When I see my opponent take this grip, my whole thing is to turn my knee inwards here. He needs outward rotation. To counteract that, I turn everything inwards. I also make sure that both arms come inside his knees. If my arms drift on the outside of the knees, even an inward rotation won't be enough to stop him buckling me in this direction. So as I feel Placido's force going this way, I bring everything to the inside here at this knee. He wants my whole body rotating this way. Strong?
Yep.
I want my whole body, go. My whole body rotating this way. My rotation will always be his. Okay? He's in a kind of a weak single hand stand position on the points of his shoulders. I'm squarely planted on 2 feet. So Placido is going to explosively go out in this direction. I go out in this direction. I place 2 hands. He needs a closed, or at least close to a closed guard around me. He needs his 2 knees above my hips. So it's in his best interest to keep his guard closed, or at the very least, his hips high. So what I want is to make his hips go low. So I push everything down and I put my knee inside his knee. Okay? So once again, we're here. He's got a tight closed guard, lock tight, buddy. And from here, we come up to our feet. As I see him scooping inside, I know what's next. I know what he wants. So as I come up to vertical posture, I turn to the opposite knee and my knee turns into his hip. Pick your heel up. If my heel stays planted on the ground, he knocks me, my knee will rotate outwards. So I pick my heel up so I can turn everything in. Now when he goes to knock me over, I feel like a brick wall. I want to point my knee at his hip. He wants my knee to point outwards. So my whole thing, first, strong, pick the heel up so you can turn it in like so and form a wedge in his hip. Now as he goes to knock me down, I want my chest going towards the opposite knee and I push, and I put my knee inside. We're now in the perfect position to come down into guard passing. Okay? So that, in a sense, is your early approach to this problem. Very, very effective, shuts it down. Now, an obvious question to ask here is, okay, that's awesome. What if I'm a day late and $1 short and the guy does knock me down? What do? Go back to our philosophy that getting knocked down is not a big deal. getting knocked down and the other guy getting on top of you, that's a big deal. Okay? With that philosophy in mind, let's understand that this method of knocking you down is a little bit more dangerous. Can you guess why? I'm sure most of you can. It's because your opponent has a better connection to your upper body, because his guard is still locked around your hips. In the previous move, where he went for a double ankle grab, there was no connection, not even to your hips. He was only connected to the knees, so it's very easy to stop him coming up. Now he's further up your body at the hips. So even though he doesn't have upper body connection, he's almost there. He's at the hips. So if I screw things up and let him get on top, he's going to get mounted on me now. Okay, so it's a little more urgent now in terms of the situation in front of us. This time, Placido is going to grab this leg because I have a hip replacement on this side. I'm not allowed to fall on my hip on that side of my body. So as we come up, Placido hooks inside here. Okay, if he succeeds in turning my knee out, look what happens. Slow down. Look what happens to this leg. As he turns my knee, I go 1, 2, 3 until my legs are in a straight line. That's when my base is lost. And when he goes to knock me down, there's no more steps. He comes up on top. His hips are on top of mine. He has upper body control, and he wins. Okay? So that's what we're trying to avoid. So I failed to turn my knee in, and I got knocked down. What do we do? When we feel we're taking this step, 1, 2, 3, if I keep stepping, I'm going to fall. Okay? So it's important as we make those steps, we come down to the knee, like so. Okay? Now, as he goes to finish the move, almost impossible. I just put my head outside his hip and my hand close to the mat. So as he goes to finish it, it's very, very difficult. As he goes to finish it, just plant and kick your leg out, stand back up, and go into your passes. Okay? So here we are again. I stand up. Placido does a really good job of knocking me over. I take my steps. As I see the steps coming, look how I just go down to a knee, just like so. As he goes to knock me over, very, very difficult. The more he goes, the more we can just kick out and go into part 2. Okay? Now, obvious question, what if he knocks me down so quickly that I fall flat on my back? What do I do now? You'll be on this side, mate. Yes, sir. Okay, what we don't want to happen is when we get knocked down, we don't want this. Because now Placido can overwrap my arm, or wrap it, and then go into Judigatamis, triangles, etc., etc. Okay? So what we have to do is stay here, short, at the hip, not long at the chest. So we go here. Okay? Your whole thing is to recover. He needs this hand to drive his hips forward. That's what he needs. Okay? His whole thing is to rush me with his hips. So once we form that frame, either with a hand or with a forearm, I want to build to height. If I'm on an elbow and I get crushed to a shoulder, he wins. The whole battle from the elbows, will he put me on my shoulder or will I come up to a hand? Be careful. If he grabs my elbow and post it, it's back exposure. That's why a lot of guys like this grip. Fingers on the outside, thumb on the inside. So when he goes to pass my elbow, it's more difficult. You lose a little bit of pushing power. And there's more danger now of a triangle. So everything comes at a price, as you know. So this is a little safer for the triangle, but more vulnerable to back exposure. This is a little less vulnerable to back exposure, a little more vulnerable to the triangle. Okay? What I'm going to recommend to you under these circumstances, you get knocked down, get to a hand. Okay? Get to a hand. You stay here and he puts forward momentum, I'm going to go from my elbow to my shoulder. And if I go to my shoulder, it's all over. Well, it's not all over, but it's definitely not good. Okay? So I want to be up here on a hand. Once we're on a hand, the main dangers are going to be things like triangles, arm bars, and back exposure. Okay? So we've got to start the heisting game. I plant my foot, and from here I heist. Even if he went for a triangle now, it's far. Your posting arm makes it very, very difficult. Okay? So, you get knocked down. First things first, don't reach. You're giving him easy wins. Stay short with the top arm and build up here. Don't face him with your chest. Now I have no base of support behind me. He pressures forward, I go to my back. Make your chest face your own hand. If you're going to make your chest face your own hand, be aware of the dangers of back exposure. So it's stronger in terms of leverage, but there's a price. That's why I generally prefer this grip at the hip over this grip. It's not wrong to be like this. It can work, but be aware of the potential dangers. Okay? Now, as we both go to heist together, he goes for flying triangle. You can't because of the post on the hip. Okay? Now from here, we recover. If he comes up in the standing position, we put him down. If he goes back to guard, then we're back into passing. So once again, we have an opponent who knocks us all the way down to the floor. We come up, he scoops inside, we're a day late and a dollar short, and we fall. Immediately, we're up. From this position, I turn back with my chest as we both go up together. We're in situations where we're back in scrambles and ready to put him down. Okay? The worst that'll happen is you get involved in a scramble. It's not the end of the world. It's not what you wanted, but it's not the end of the world. Okay? If he wanted to play guard position, he'll probably return to guard. You'll start passing. If you both go up standing, you have a choice now between pulling guard or going into your upper body takedowns, whatever you want. So one more time. Go guard. Yeah. If he scoops on the right side, I'll always turn in. Okay, that's the most conservative method of working. Once I turn in, he tries to finish the move. It's so damn difficult for him. He goes left side. First one, step 2, step 3, down like so. From this position, I just take my leg, I just extend it, kick over, and we're right back into our methods of passing and opening a closed guard. If we get knocked all the way down and it all goes to hell, from here, very important, turn in towards the chest, start that heisting game. And then from here, we're back up and recovering. Okay? So those are the 3 ways in which we deal with inside scoops on one leg. Now, we've been through an awful lot of stuff on opening a closed guard and the squad philosophy of doing so. I'm sure you'll note that in competition, my students have a very good track record of quickly and fairly easily opening up an opponent's closed guard and getting onto the business of guard passing. That's how I want you to be. Not spending long periods of time stuck in a closed guard, wasting time, but rather identifying the problem, having a simple set of solutions, getting up and moving forwards. Now, let's put all these things we've been looking at together. Bosco has me in closed guard. As we move around together, you'll see that Placido wants to control me with various kinds of upper body grips. My first thing is to negate what he's doing. Okay, if I see it's possible to just clear hands off and get my head up, I'll take that. Okay, you can't always do it. You've got a talented opponent. He'll break a grip, go through. He'll go into overhooks. We'll thread our way out. He'll go up into underhooks. The onus is on us now to start that action of pommeling out. He goes into a situation where he starts to get angles on me. And from here, we're constantly looking to pop up, put a knee in the middle, follow our opponent, etc., etc. He starts climbing his feet up our back. So from here, we're always looking to come forward and get those feet returned back down to our lower back. We're always looking to get this grip, double biceps, either overhand or underhand. They're both very good. Okay? So as we go into the various grip-making maneuvers, moving, from here, that's our grip. From here, we're quickly up and getting knees off the floor. Okay? A lot of times, under stress, we'll just get up regardless. We're looking to avoid situations where we stay on knees and clear the grip and just end up in these interminable battles trying to clear grips and then end up getting back exposed, etc., etc. Our whole thing is to get here. Even if you did pass my elbow across, there's no back exposure. So my knees are up. I have a height advantage. And so it's easy for us now to start coming up. Even if his feet are locked high on my back, we're constantly using a hand walk to get up in the vertical posture. From here, we're looking for any one of our favorite ways of getting out of this position. As we play, our opponent will be trying to grab our ankles when we get up into standing position. As he goes to sweep me, from here, we're constantly looking to move on out. Keeping on the leg. So you can see, as we play in this position, prioritize getting your knees off the mat. Yes, there'll be grip fighting, but grip fighting is so much easier when your knees come off the mat first and you fight for vertical posture second. As you fight for vertical posture, your feet will be left behind. Don't get intimidated. Make sure in these situations you understand that getting knocked down is not the end of the world. As long as he has no direct control of my upper body, you're going to have opportunities to recover from here. Scramble back up, and the game's back on. In this way, you'll stand up with a minimum waste of time and minimum fuss.